When you leave to go cruising, whether it's for a weekend or a week or even longer, probably you've stocked the boat with everything that you love on board. What happens when you get to new places and you're starting to run out of food? Well, the local ingredients can be an amazing taste test, and I'd highly encourage you to make sure you leave some room in your head and your fridge and your pantry for some of those local ingredients. Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley Podcast. I'm talking about a few of my favorite local ingredients and the insight that you get into some of the culture by checking out local markets. While I'm talking about food and local ingredients, it's kind of natural to ask the next question about how to store it, particularly if you're talking about fresh stuff. Because after all, your boat fridge is likely a whole lot smaller than any that you ever had on land, and you might not even have refrigeration at all. So how do you store all of those goodies in a tiny fridge when, at least in the States, we're used to throwing everything into the refrigerator that you possibly buy in the store? As you might imagine, on a site with a tagline of making boat life better, the Boat Galley has you covered. There's an online course that comes with a book that's filled with tips and tricks on what to buy, how to store it, and even how to prepare it. Go ahead and register for access to eating well with a tiny fridge over at the Boat Galley website today. You'll be surprised at all the things you'll learn about things that don't have to be refrigerated at all. I love grocery shopping. I love grocery shopping on land when I'm used to where I'm going, and I love grocery shopping particularly when I go traveling. That holds true whether I'm talking about land travel, but particularly when I'm talking about life on a boat. See, the thing with local stores, whether you're talking about a market or a grocery store, is that you learn an awful lot about the local place by what you find at the market or the grocery store. Take, for example, the fresh markets here in the Eastern Caribbean. I first really noticed this when we were in Dominica, and I was walking through the market there, and I realized, hey, you can buy these bundles of fresh vegetables. They're bundled. It's leeks and thyme and parsley and a couple of celery stalks, which down in the Eastern Caribbean look like almost like an overgrown parsley stalk. Super, super thick stems for parsley, but they don't look like the celery that we're used to seeing. Anyway, that's a side note. But you buy these things in a bundle. You don't buy them separately. You don't buy like 2 sprigs of thyme here and a scallion there or a leek there or maybe a piece of pumpkin. But it all comes tied in a piece of twine and you buy it as a bundle. It's because they make soup a lot down here. And that is what you need for the basic soup stock. You go to the market and you see the things that are in season. When we first got to the Eastern Caribbean in January, you couldn't find mangoes anywhere. There were no mangoes. And now it's the middle of April. Guess what we're starting to see a whole lot of? Mangoes. Right now they're green mangoes. We're starting to see some ripe ones. Obviously, it's mango season in the Eastern Caribbean. Would I know that walking into a grocery store in the States? No, because we're used to seeing everything imported and flown in. So I love going to local markets to see what's in season, but also to get an insight into what it is that people actually eat. You can see down here in the Eastern Caribbean, there are always these piles of cut pumpkin slices. They look like pumpkin. They're kind of green on the outside and definitely that orange fleshy stuff inside. You don't often see a whole one, but you see slices of it. Sometimes wrapped in plastic, sometimes just straight there. But obviously that's a food that is grown all over the place and is a staple. Who knew? You don't see that in the States for sure. One of the other things that I love about local ingredients is exploring and finding new things even in the grocery store. And so, for example, in the French islands, you're not going to find Ritz crackers. Actually, I think you can find Ritz crackers, and I think they cost about $8 or $9 a box. Or you can buy Lou bacon-flavored crackers for €1, which is like $1 for a container. I could spend time looking and searching for Oreo cookies, and I'd spend $1 million if I felt like I had to have my Oreo cookies. Or instead, I can find, again, Lou, which is a French brand. I can find Lou cookies that are these kind of awesome shortbready cookies with the dark chocolate on top of them. Oh, they're so delicious and so good. Yum. I don't have to stick only to the things that I'm familiar with, but I definitely like to try new things when I go places. And generally I'll buy one of it to test it, to try it out, to see if I like it before I go back to buy it. But I will say sometimes we try these things in one spot and we decide we really like it, and maybe you can find it someplace else and maybe you can't. So it's a little bit of a catch-22. It's a little bit of a darned if you do, darned if you don't sort of a thing, because you don't want to stock up on something if you don't like it, but maybe you're going to try it and really love it and then you can't find it again. So maybe that's part of the adventure and part of what you experience when you're cruising. But going to local grocery stores and going to local markets gives you an insight into what it is that people eat locally. Here's another example. I love cilantro. Have been looking for it everywhere, and I could find it in Dominica, but when I went to a couple of places in Martinique and a couple of the fresh markets, there's one really great fresh market in Saint-Pierre on the northwest tip of Martinique. When you walk into the dinghy dock and you walk onto the land, there's actually a fresh market that is 6 days a week. Saturdays, it's much more busy with more vendors, but you can always get fresh vegetables at the market in Saint-Pierre. And I talked to one woman, a couple of different women actually, in the market on a Saturday, and I asked about cilantro, and they said no, nobody eats it here, so nobody grows it. I was like, oh, well, of course, if nobody's going to eat it, nobody's going to grow it. So it's been very hard to find cilantro in the French islands. That's just a little bit of a cultural difference. It's not something that they eat, so they don't grow it. Oh well, okay, so now I'm on to finding something else and some other kind of herb that I can use, or I'm just going to have to wait till I move on to somewhere else that maybe they do make cilantro, and then I can have my cilantro flavored dinners and meals. My point on all of this slightly rambling conversation is to test new things. Go try things. Don't think that because you only like this one sort of thing that that's the only thing that you'll ever like. That doesn't mean that you have to fall in love with all the local ingredients that you find, but give them a try and you might be surprised. Ask at a local market how to make something. Have a conversation. You'll get to know somebody, but you'll learn a lot about how the local culture works just through food. I can't wait to share an Anchorage with you where we each bring our own new favorite local ingredient that we found to share as we toast to this incredible lifestyle that we get to live. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love hearing from our listeners. We love it when you don't forget to subscribe. We love it when you share us with your friends so that they too can learn a little bit about making boat life better, because after all, that's what the Boat Galley is all about. Have the most spectacular week.